Christian Community Foundation is just a powerful influence in our city.
Larry is a visionary. To hear him talk about his vision, what he thought it would do for the city of Memphis, and to see how many people were affected was really impactful for me.
Larry Lloyd is very unique, and the city owes him so much.
He had the vision about where he could match up opportunity for people to give in need, where it was effectively going to be deployed into the community to help the Christian community, all in a Christian context.
I've always operated out of an abundance mentality. God is sovereign. He has all the people he needs. He owns the cattle on 1,000 hills. We sing that when I was a kid. But the idea was, how do we help Christian donors steward their resources to do generous giving that was effective and efficient, and kind of the rest, as they say, is history. So I'm Larry Lloyd, Memphian my entire life except for 6 years when I did graduate work at Fuller Seminary. So born and raised here. Memphis has always been a city in black and white. You know, we talk about the poverty level in Memphis, and I think sometimes we forget the history that led to where we sit right now.
Long distance information, give me Memphis, Tennessee. Help me find.
During the Civil War, the Union Army was here almost from the beginning. So we had a huge population of African American slaves that came to Memphis for protection and jobs. And so Memphis has always been, since the Civil War, a city in black and white. Yellow fever hit Memphis in 3 different waves in the late 1870s, and we lost half our population. It was the African American community and the Catholic community that buried people, cared for those that had the fever, and after the Civil War was over and the Union Army left, there was a great massacre in Memphis, and 48 African Americans were lynched, churches were burned, businesses were burned down. But the black community, African American community, is resilient. They survived and made Memphis their home, even during Jim Crow South. And so Memphis, when I was in high school, Memphis City Schools was half black and half white.
Help me information, more than that I.
Starting in high school, I began a re-education, as it were, of what the Christian faith was all about. It wasn't just about personal salvation, though that's primary. It was also about social action. It was also about feeding the hungry, clothing those that needed clothes, visiting the prisoner. At Matthew 25 became pivotal in my theological formation.
I take the Matthew 25 pretty literally, and that is that I was hungry and you fed me, and I was naked and you clothed me. If you take that literally, then you're need to be involved in inner city, because in Memphis, that's where the underprivileged and the oppressed live.
At Rhodes College, I was a pre-med major, but one of the things I was able to help start at Rhodes was a chapter of Fellowship of Christian Athletes. Memphis City Schools decided they would do away with middle school PE and athletics. So what we did at FCA at Rhodes is we developed an after-school program, actually 6-period, athletic program at Riverview Middle School. By the time I graduated in 1974 from Rhodes, the Lord just pretty much changed my heart. I didn't want to go to med school. I wanted to do ministry with young people in the inner city. In 1987, I was leaving California and wanting to know what to do next. But I had grown to understand that citywide ministry is absolutely crucial. And I learned about that through the Pittsburgh Leadership Foundation, 1978. And so I moved back to start the Memphis Leadership Foundation, 1987. And in 1993-94, we decided at Memphis Leadership Foundation to create the Hope Foundation.
It was originally designated to be a Christian united way for inner city Memphis. And that's what Larry's initial vision was to try to figure out a way to systematically fund de novo inner city ministry so that it could allow Memphis leadership to be able to have a funding source for a lot of the projects that they were working on. And as we got into it in more depth, we realized that Memphis as a city is an extremely generous city, and especially the Christian community.
At that time, in the 1990s, it was sort of the golden years of economic development. I mean, people were making a lot of money, And those who were generous were giving away a lot of money. Well, it was so successful that the board, we decided, let's spread this beyond the Memphis Leadership Foundation and think about creating a Christian Community Foundation.
The Christian Community Foundation had a number of folk involved in its birthing, if you want to call it that. Folk who were, one, committed to a vision that Larry had brought to the table, but more importantly, committed to being faithful to God's call on their lives and using this new strategy for doing ministry.
How I got involved with the foundation was really a call from Larry Lloyd. I didn't know what a donor advised fund was, so I had to get educated myself. The more we inched on, the more confidence I got that this was going to be a solid endeavor. And again, there was a lot of prayer and a lot of great guys working on the board with us. And so you just had a good feeling.
At the time that I started, there was only 3 people. It was me and Larry Lloyd and Hank Parks, who was the CFO. And they were real quiet, and I was really quiet, and so it was just very quiet in the foundation. And I remember after like the first couple of weeks thinking, Lord, is this really where you want me to be? 20 years later, I was still there.
I'd known Larry Lloyd when he was at Young Life, because at one time I was on the Young Life board, and I was involved in some inner city organizations that he was involved in. So he came to me and said, we're going to form this Christian Community Foundation because we think there's a need for that in the city of Memphis. We'll give money to the inner city Christian ministries, which I had a heart for and he had a heart for.
It came out of the notion that generous people wanted to have a vehicle to do generous giving in a way that was effective and efficient.
When Larry Lloyd started the Christian Community Foundation, he properly identified that first, Memphis is a very generous community, and that those givers sometimes needed good information about where to most effectively give that money. Larry knew a lot of the effective Christian ministries in the city, and so he could match up a donor who wanted to give money to a particular area or a particular ministry or a particular cause, his knowledge of what's effective in that area, and help them give that money effectively to those organizations. And we figured out a way to do it in a cost-effective, tax-efficient manner so that people could give money to the Christian Community Foundation. That money they gave could earn money while it's not being deployed. It could then be directed by the donor to organizations that either they supported in the city or that we helped them understand were viable opportunities for their money to be deployed to serve the need they saw.
In the beginning, Larry had all these ideas about different things that he wanted to do, and he would bring them to me, and I would think, well, I can't do that, or this is more than what I thought it was going to be. But then I would do it, and I think, oh, wow, I did that, or yeah, this can be done. So one of the things that the foundation did was we're going to have a 1-year reserve. So if something happens and the bottom falls out, we can hold on for 1 year, and then we have to close our doors. All the money above and beyond that, we're going to give away. We're going to give it back to the city of Memphis. I thought that was a wonderful model, and I still think it is.
The idea is that we would run the staff of the Christian Community Foundation as lean as humanly possible so that any surplus would go into the Hope for Memphis Fund, and that Hope for Memphis Fund would be used to do exactly what we originally intended. We were really floundering in those early years trying to figure out a way to provide a consistent funding source for some of these ministries, as we said.
There were times in the life of Christian Community Foundation when we thought we might have had to shut the doors.
And so if you joined the board of the Christian Community Foundation, you also were agreeing to fund its operations until we could get it going forward.
I just thought, wow, this is not what I signed up for sure. And I don't know that it's anything that we laughed about. I think we can laugh at it now because this is in the past.
By 2008, we had a significant number of larger donors that were kind of sustaining the operations of the organization. And we really started watching the giving from these foundations starting to grow.
When I started at the foundation, we had 27 donor advised funds. When I left, we were over 200.
I think the foundation has been beyond successful in terms of, if you just want to measure that by how much money that's been given, but more importantly to me, how they've influenced the giving community around understanding generosity and what God intends for us to do as it relates to the needs of our city's most disadvantaged.
I grew up in abject poverty. So Larry's vision was for people who are growing up in poverty. Let's find a way out of this thing. You know, what can we do for these kids who are growing up? Just feel like there is no hope. And so when I would see the ministries that he was trying to project or trying to bring to the city, I could see myself needing or wishing that I had had something like that when I grew up. Even now that I've been away from the foundation almost a decade now, I still see some of those ministries thriving, and I still work with some of these ministries and see how God is working in our city.
It takes money, and a lot of money, to do this kind of work, because sometimes we got to meet payroll. And sometimes you're like praying like, Lord, what are we gonna do? And then we'll get a call. Or Rex or someone will say, hey, I just wanted you to know this was coming. And I'll say, oh my gosh, it was exactly what we needed. And so having an organization like Christian Community Foundation in the city with people that have like-mindedness, that have an intentionality to give toward organizations that are wanting to do work in the city, it shows us that there's trust and there's belief that we are actually out here doing the work and that someone sees us doing that. Honestly, Christian Community Foundation over the years has taught me that there are people out there that can help us do the work we need to do at the level we need to do it.
There's an energy around that. There's a sense of purpose. There's a mission around that will change the perception of the city, will change the way kids are educated, and the city will have a brighter future because of that.
The city can be changed. Places have been changed before. We can change Memphis.
This big ship is going to turn. I don't know when that day is, but I know that it's going to be because of God himself decides to turn the ship.
Integrity and credibility is helping a donor realize their passion and follow that rather than trying to get them to fund your stuff. And I try to tell that to nonprofit leaders all the time. If you ask the right questions and if you're listening carefully, donors will tell you where God is leading them. And it doesn't have to be your organization. Guess what? God's got all he needs. So if you can steer a donor to another nonprofit that's in line with their passion, you've earned a lot of credibility. I would say in Memphis, I see more collaboration among nonprofits than I've seen in any other city. We actually encourage and celebrate collaboration, and we celebrate generosity and abundance, not scarcity. The God of the universe is the God of abundance, not scarcity.
If we had more people to give, we'd have more money to give away. And if there's more money to give away, then there's more programs that they can fund. And if there are more programs funded, then there's more boots on the ground, more people to do more ministry. And I think that's one of the things with ministries, their hand is on the pulse. So if you went down the street and you saw a homeless man and you said, I really want to help him, but I don't know how. Well, the Community Foundation can help you do that. You know that your money is going where you want it to go.
With over 500 donors and more than $1 billion given away, the Christian Community Foundation invites you to join the family of givers.
I'm very encouraged where Memphis is and where we're going because I know the people of God are here.